Hey, book community. So first of all, I have to say I'm sorry about the sound. I am actually missing my microphone piece, so hopefully this will be usable. What I'm going to do today is something a little different than I've done before. Actually, I've seen another booktuber do it in the last several months, and something I wanted to try. What I'm going to be doing is ranking 10 books. Now, these are 10 books that I've not read. In fact, I don't think I've opened any of them as far as to read them or anything like that. So I'm going to be looking at the first lines of 10 books. Some of these, all of these may be a series. One of them may actually be a standalone. Anyway, of some series that I hope to get to in the future. And so I'm going to be ranking them from 1 to 10 based on the first line. So let's get started with this. The first book is The Children of Gods and Fighting Men by Shauna Lawless. Now, I've heard a lot of good about this particular book. Specifically, I heard Philip Chase on one of his videos speak highly of it. So let's start off with this one. Let's see how the first line looks. All right, this is the prologue. This is Ina Monastery, AD 981, Gormflaith. I have no idea if I pronounced that right, but we'll hope I did. Amlav's armor, sword, and axe gleamed as if new. All right. Of course, that makes you want to know who Amlav is, and it tells you specifically that he's a soldier. Doesn't tell you a lot more than that. So I'm going to put that down right here. We'll see how, based on how the next one goes. The next one is The Sword of Kaigan. Now, this was originally a self-pub book. I believe it may have been picked up by a publisher at some point, but there's been a lot of attention shown to it recently because of a special edition that's out for it, and a lot of people are getting it now. So let's see. This is The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang. Let's see the first line of this. Chapter 1, The Northerner. It was a harrowing climb to the high school. Okay, a harrowing climb to the high school. I'm not sure where I want to put that. I'm gonna probably put that below of Children of God and Fighting Them. Of course, just because it's on bottom now doesn't mean it'll stay on bottom. In fact, I'm not sure if I want the smaller books to stay on bottom, but we'll see how that goes. The next book is a highly anticipated book that I'm wanting to read, and that is Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is one of the longest books on my TBR. When I say longest books, I became a constant reader probably a little over a year ago now. And this was one of the first books that it was actually being hyped up a lot on BookTube back then, and I bought it, and I still haven't read it, but I hope to read it in 2024. So let's find the first page. All right, chapter 1. The Twice Lucky. The two would-be jade thieves. All right, let me start over. The two would-be jade thieves sweated in the kitchen of the Twice Lucky restaurant. The two would-be jade thieves sweated in the kitchen of the Twice Lucky restaurant. I think that's going on top right now. I think it's going on top. Pretty confident in that so far. I know there isn't a lot to this, but just based on how I like it when I read it, I think that goes on top right now. The next book is the first book of the Lycanis trilogy, The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Allington. Now, he's had a newer book come out, and I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's been very popular. I haven't got it yet. Hope to get to that at some point. I know it'll be next year, probably later next year before I can. The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Allington. Let's look at the first page of this book. Now, I know many of you, as you're listening to this, you've already read some of these books, and you know what the first lines are. You have a good idea, but I don't. Okay, so I haven't set any rules down, but if the rule is I have to stop at the first period, which I'm going to make that my rule, lightning period. I'm going to go ahead and read a little further just to see, but I don't think I'm going to change that rule. For a moment, the waters of Erith Morg were lit, rolling and churning as though a great knife had plunged deep into the pool's murky heart. If that had been the first line, that would be on top. Oh, this is difficult. But the first line says, lightning, to the first period. That has to go on bottom for me. That's interesting. Had the second line been the first line, that would be number one right now for me. All right. The next book is also another very hyped book. It's by Mark Lawrence, The Book That Wouldn't Burn. This was another book that I believe Philip Chase and many others had a lot of good to say about. This stack's going to get a lot higher than I need it to be at some point, so I may eventually have to move it. Let's go to the first page of The Book That Wouldn't Burn. Okay, there's a prologue. If there's a prologue, I'm going to stop there, and the prologue is only one line, so I hope it's good. I know you can't see that. You're going to have seen it before I do. All right, let's see what this is. Prologue. The first arrow hit the child. The second line is this. That was the opening line. The first arrow hit the child. That definitely makes me want to read, well, not the second line, because the second line says that was the first line. That definitely makes me want to read the third line and beyond. I believe Jade City has been topped for now. All right. I don't know how this is going. I don't know if it's fun for you, but it's fun for me. The next book is The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee. Now, if we were judging book covers, there's no doubt this would be towards the top. It's a beautiful book cover. The first book of the 5 Warrior Angels. I'm definitely reading this in 2024. Probably one of my first reads of the month, I imagine. Of course, it's a chunker, so it may go throughout the month. Let's see. The first line of this. I'm not going to read the acknowledgments. It's a gorgeous map. Of course, most of these have had some type of a map, but that's a particularly nice looking one. All right, let's see here. All right, here's the prologue. Shawcroft, the 15th day of the fire moon, 985th year of Legion Skylock's Gilkana. That's not the first line, that's the title of the chapter. So, the first line is this. In her panic, the woman had fled with a boy to the very edge of the glacier, a thin, bony knife buried hilt deep in her back. Let me do that again. In her panic, the woman had fled with the boy to the very edge of the glacier, a thin, bony knife buried hilt deep in her back. Well, I was hoping that I would be mixing and matching these a little more, but so far I'm pretty much I think I've moved one, but so far I'm stacking the next book on top because that is my favorite so far. That line strikes my interest quite a bit. The next book is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Yes, I have not read that. In fact, I've only read 5, maybe 6 Sanderson books. And I hope to correct that. I'm correcting that right now, actually. I'm reading The Well of Ascension and hopefully finish the Mistborn series, and then I'll start on that in 2024. All right, so let's look. I'm definitely going to have to move this stack. Let me do that real quick. All right, The Way of Kings. Let's get to the first line of The Way of Kings. Talk about maps. I have no idea how good the quality of that is. That is Roshar. I have never read this, but I have heard of Roshar quite a bit. It definitely makes me want to read it. All right. I've been told there were multiple prologues, I think. I may have heard that wrong, but multiple prologues. This is the prelude to the Stormlight Archive. Kalak rounded a rocky stone ridge and stumbled to the top before the body of a dying thunderclast. That doesn't really do much for me. That doesn't do much for me. I think I'm going to put The Way of Kings second to last. So we would have The Shadow of What Was Lost would be number 10. The Way of Kings, number 9. The Sword of Kaigan, number 8. The Children of Gods and Fighting Men at number 7. Jade City at number 6. The Book That Wouldn't Burn at number 5. And Dufree, actually I did that exactly backwards, but you get the drift of what I'm saying. This is a mess, isn't it? All right. Next is the Blade itself. And yes, since I've not read this, I've not read any Joe Abercrombie. Lord Grimdark himself, I've not read anything by him. I've definitely heard a lot about him, and I want to read what he has. We'll get to it eventually. Again, it will not be this year, but more than likely it will be 2024. All right, let me look at this. The End is the title of what I'm assuming is the prologue. I don't think it's chapter 1. Maybe it is chapter 1. Nope, just The End. Logan plunged through the trees, bare feet slipping and sliding on the wet earth, the slush, the wet pine needles, breath rasping in his chest, blood thumping in his head. I got to admit, I like that. Let me read that again. Logan plunged through the trees, bare feet slipping and sliding on the wet earth, the slush, wet pine needles, breath rasping in his chest, blood thumping in his head. So something that makes me like the first line is, does it make me want to read the next line? And that makes me want to read the next line. Now, we have some good lines here so far. Brian Lee Durfee was number 1 so far. He's the top. So, I don't think that bumps Durfee, but I definitely think it's number 2. So, we have Brian Lee Durfee at number 1, Abercrombie at number 2, Mark Lawrence at number 3, Fonda Lee at number 4, Shauna Lawless at number 5, M.L. Wang at number 6, Sanderson at number 7, and Allington at number 8. We have 2 left, and you can already tell what that is. It is none other than A Game of Thrones, the first book of A Song of Ice and Fire. I've not read it. Absolutely plan on reading it. I remember when the show came out, it was very, I can't just say adult content. It was more than adult content, and I could not watch that personally. But I'm told that the books, even though they are not YA, I will say that it's not quite as bad. Some people that I respect quite a bit said that you can get through it if you couldn't get through the show, and so I'm going to take their word for it, at least start it next year. All right, let's see here. The prologue. We should start back, Garrett urged as the woods began to grow dark under them. We should start back, Garrett urged as the woods began to grow dark around them. That's not bad. That definitely makes me want to read what's next, but it doesn't blow me away. It doesn't blow me away. So let's see. I think so far, starting at J Legacy and up, those were pretty good. I didn't really care for much at all the ones below that, at least the first lines, that is. So I think I'm going to pick up the first 3, put Game of Thrones at number 4. I think. I probably should have taken notes because now I'm forgetting what is what. But I think that's about right. Okay. Last book. here we are, the moment we've all been waiting for. The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This is book 1 of the Empire of the Wolf. The cover looks fantastic. All right, let's see. Let's see. The Justice of Kings. Not to be confused with the Way of Kings. All right, the title of this chapter is The Witch of Real. It is a strange thing to think that the end of the empire of the wolf and all the death and devastation that came with it traced its long roots back to the tiny and insignificant village of Real. Let me do that again. It is a strange thing to think that the end of the empire of the wolf and all the death and destruction that came with it traced its long roots back to the tiny and insignificant village of Real. It's not bad, but it doesn't blow me away either. So, I feel like I'm going to pick up Jade Legacy. I'm going to put it there. All right. So, we have The Forgotten Moon at number 1. Let's start from the bottom. We have The Shadow of What Was Lost at number 10, James Islington. We have The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson at number 9. We have The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Long at number 8. And at number 7, we have The Children of Gods and Fighting Men by Shauna Lawless. The Justice of Kings at number 6. Number 5, we have Jade Legacy. Number 4, we have A Game of Thrones. Number 3, we have The Book That Wouldn't Burn. Number 2, The Blade Itself. And number 1, The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee. All right, so that is my from 10 to 1 ranking on the first lines of these books. What did you think? You disagree with any? Would you place them differently? What is some of your favorite first lines in a book? It doesn't have to be fantasy, just some of your favorite first lines in a book. Until next time, go read books.